Hello, my name is Ross. I'm just starting a new set of videos that I'm going to embark upon here, introducing folks to the Lojban constructed language. This is going to be our first video, our first lesson, and it's going to concern itself with the letters, how Lojban is spelt, and how it's pronounced. But before we do that, I want to do a real quick introduction to what is Lojban for those of you who don't know or kind of got here and are really curious. So first of all, I want to say Ishorudo, which means welcome everyone in Lojban. Lojban is, like I said, a constructed language. It actually grew out of an earlier constructed language called Loglan, and kind of split from the Loglan community and actually became more of an open source language. Loglan was sort of more of a closed source, if you will, although obviously that's a little weird to talk about when you're talking about languages instead of computer code. But Lojban is open source in the sense that the reference grammar is online and free to look at, and the language itself is also very open to the community itself, kind of modifying the language going forward. So that's why I say open source. It has a logical and unambiguous grammar, which basically means that the grammar is based in the ideas of predicate logic, and if you don't know what that means, I'll be getting into that in the second video and probably afterward as well. The language is completely regular, so there's no sort of tense changes or things that when you pronounce it one way in one sense, but then it changes later on. English has a lot of these, like the past tense of run is ran instead of runned, right? Which would if you were following the rule. So if you follow the rules in Lojban, you will always be correct. There are no instances where there's like a special rule for one word. Lojban is non-gendered, and I don't mean that you can't specify a gender in Lojban, but obviously you can if you need to. But words don't have genders, and it's not required that you ever use a gender. So if you don't want to specify the gender of a person or something like that, it's not necessary. And this actually extends to other instances as well. So Lojban is not mandatory that in Lojban that you say give the tense of a verb. So you don't have to say when something happened. If it's obvious, you can just sort of use the verb, use the normal version of the verb without adding any tense modifiers to it, and that's completely good Lojban. That's correct Lojban. Lojban attempts to be culturally neutral, and what I mean by that is that the language, when they were putting together the words in the language, they tried to draw from the 6 most commonly spoken languages in the world. And so some of the words that we're going through, you'll immediately recognize from English, because obviously that's one of the languages that influenced Lojban. But there'll be others that are completely foreign to you, and that's probably because they came from one of the other 5 languages. And then Lojban finally also has completely phonetic spelling. And there's a fancy term for this that I can't remember at the moment, but it's basically that when you hear a word spoken in Lojban, you immediately know how it's spelled. And when you see a word spelled, you immediately know how it's spoken. So each letter has one sound and one sound only. Why learn Lojban? I think the first item here is the biggest item, and that's that you're curious. You probably wouldn't be at this video if you weren't a little bit curious, and it's obviously just it's an intellectual exercise. So that's what the major, I think, reason right now. You might also be interested in it because you're interested in the fact that it's a culturally neutral language, and that in some sense is interesting about how you go about constructing that and so forth. Third item is to test the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, and I'll go on this for a minute because it was the impetus behind Loglan, the precursor to Lojban. The Sapir-Whorf hypothesis is a theory developed by a couple of linguists and I think anthropologists. That the theory basically says that the language that you speak influences the way in which you speak. So oftentimes people will say, that for example, that that Inuits have, a million words for snow. And this is sort of an implementation, if you will, of the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. It's basically that the place that you grow up influences the language that is spoken there, right? So because obviously it snows a lot where the Inuit live, that therefore they must have a ton of words for snow. It actually turns out that the Inuit, by the way, don't have a ton of words for snow. They have about an average number. It's the same as everybody else, words for snow. But anyway, Lojban was originally conceived as a way to test the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. And so the theory is that a completely rigorously logical language, if you sort of were to grow up speaking it and it was your native language, would lead to different methods of thought than something like English or French or Spanish or what have you, or Japanese or Chinese for that matter. So that's the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. Like I said, the precursor, to Lojban, which is called Loglan, was originally created as a sort of an idea for a way that you could test the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. Obviously, nobody speaks native Loglan or Lojban for that matter, so it's kind of an awkward test for the hypothesis. But that was the original kind of theory. And then finally, like many constructed languages, I think there's this idea that Lojban could be something of like a universal language, if you believe that would be a good thing. So Esperanto, right, was the original sort of idea for what would be a universal language as a means to allow everyone to communicate, and that maybe this would create peace on earth and goodwill toward men and so forth. So there's sort of a theory there, but it's kind of in more practical terms, you could, if you were a Lojban speaker, kind of speak with another person with whom you didn't have a common language if both of you spoke Lojban. So if you've got a Japanese person, and this has happened to me, I've had conversations with people in Japan is the example that I have, who don't speak English and I don't speak Japanese, but because we both speak a little bit of Lojban, and I emphasize the little bit that I speak, that then you can then communicate with them. So the Lojban alphabet, really quickly. It is very, very similar to the English alphabet, as you can see on this screen. So the consonants that are always consonants are B, C, D, F, G, J, K, L, M, N, P, R, S, T, V, T, V, X, Z, and the apostrophe mark, which is a consonant. I'll get into that in a second. You'll notice there are a few letters missing here. We don't use all of the letters. So H is missing, W is missing, Q is missing. I think those are the three that are not used. For the vowels, A, E, I, O, U, and Y. Y is always a vowel in Lojban, and is never a consonant. So how do we pronounce all these consonants? Most of the consonants you see there are pronounced exactly as they are in English. Then there are a few exceptions, 4 exceptions to be precise. The big ones, C is pronounced SH, as in like shell, or shut up, or anything like that. So you've got your normal kind of SH sound in English. The J is never pronounced as a hard J. It's always pronounced as J. So you might hear it as measure or pleasure. That anytime you get that SURE ending in English, that's the sound that you're going for. So J, it's like a J sound. X is pronounced H, as in Bach or Loch. So this can be a hard sound for English speakers to make. It's not a native English sound. If you speak any German, it will be absolutely familiar to you. If you speak any of like sort of the Semitic languages like Hebrew or Arabic or I think Farsi also has it. That you'll know what I'm talking about. But if you don't, this may be harder for you. You'll have to practice a little bit to make sure that you can make that sound. But it's as in Bach or Loch. And then finally, the apostrophe is a letter in Lojban. It is pronounced. Do not gloss over it. You will be pronouncing words wrong. It's pronounced like the English H, so like a h sound, like hello or something like that. The vowels are pronounced very similar to how they are in English, but they are never But they always, and like I said, letters in Lojban make one and only one sound. So the sounds here are always what they sound like. So you don't have like a hard A and a soft A, or a hard E and a soft E like we do in English. A is pronounced as in father, so father. Never hat, never so that's not how you pronounce it. The E is in get, get, The I is in feet, or machine, so the E sound, right? O as in bold, or more. And one note here on the O, it is a pure sound, which apparently can be hard for English speakers. I don't honestly know what the whole difference is there, but you just want to be careful with your O sound to make sure that it is literally just the O, and you're not sort of moving into a different vowel as you say it. Apparently English speakers are bad at this, so that's something to keep in mind. The U is as in cool, or roof, or something along those lines. And then the Y is pronounced as the schwa sound. So for those of you who aren't linguists, you might not know what schwa means, but it's the sound that you get, such as the I in pencil. It's like the at the end there. There are lots of other examples. Why the schwa is actually really common in English, and once you know it sounds like you hear it all over the place. But that's the basic idea. The pencil. So if you pronounce pencil like pencil, it's not that sound. It's like the like I'm saying, the pencil. And then finally, you do see diphthongs, which is just two vowels strung together without any space in between them or other consonants between them, and those are pronounced basically as they're written. So the AI combination there is I, and the UO is uo. So just kind of string the two together and you'll be good. Lojban does have two special characters which are considered, I guess, letters if you want to. It's the period and the comma. These are not grammatical marks like they are in English. Lojban actually doesn't have any grammatical marks. All of the grammatical marks are spoken words. I'll get into that later. But the period and the comma, you are basically there to indicate to you that you need to pause. And the reason for this is that the way that Lojban words are spelled is very precise, and words are supposed to end with certain letters or start with certain letters, and that makes it very easy, for example, for a computer to tell what is the beginning or end of a word, for example. And so one of the, I didn't mention earlier, but one of the interesting implementation, or one of the interesting reasons that Lojban is sort of cool is that it's meant to be very easily read by computers or listened by computers, and hopefully will lead to, down the road, kind of better kind of machine understanding of language. So that's one of the reasons for that. But anyway, the full stop or the period is used at kind of either end of a word to keep it from merging with another word. If it's not, usually this comes into play when it's not a Lojban word, because Lojban words are already constructed so that they can't possibly merge with another word, and we'll see how that happens as we go forward. But if you're bringing another word into Lojban, so for example your name, right, then you will sometimes, if it doesn't quite end with the right type of letter, you may have to put a period at the beginning or the end of it to make sure that there's that stop there. And then secondly, the comma can be used to sort of separate two vowels that you don't want to form a diphthong, and so that's the most common point where you'll see a comma. Honestly, commas are not terribly rare in Lojban. You don't see them all that often. And so that's the end of this first video. I hope you guys are interested. If you have any comments or questions or anything like that about pronunciation or anything, feel free to leave a comment down below, and I'll be checking on them. But yeah, so thanks very much. I hope you guys stick around. In the next video, we're going to start getting into how you actually use words in Lojban to create sentences. And so do stick around for that. And if you like this, give it a thumbs up. And if you're curious to know when I'm going to put up the next one, definitely follow the channel, and so you should get a notification when that happens. Hopefully, I'm hoping to put them out pretty regularly, but obviously they're not. I have to put together the PowerPoint for each one, so it's going to take a little while. But thanks very much, and thanks for watching.